Hey everybody. As I kind of mentioned in my blog, as I get closer to going on my journey, I start thinking more about the past and reminiscing about the past and different situations I've been in and experiences I've had. This is one I think that needs to be shared. When I was like 5 or 6, I believe maybe I was 7, because it was second grade, I believe. My mom was in a relationships with a stepdad, and she was struggling. She was working a part-time job for a grocery store, making barely nothing and supporting both me and my sister. Things got really tough, and the stepdad, I remember the conversation. I was sitting there in the living room. We lived in a small town in Arkansas called West Fork, and I was sitting in our living room, and he told her that he wanted to have basically a 3-way relationship. He had found some other lady that he wanted to add to the relationship, because he wanted more sex. He wanted a better sex life. It was a tough thing. Some of the reason behind it being so tough was, for one, that's a lot of reality to face at any age, nonetheless at 7 or 8. For 2, she made the decision to go ahead. We made the decision to go ahead and leave, and I'll continue on to that in a minute. But this guy was very physically abusive to me, very verbally abusive to me. It was always a put down, always telling me to shut up, always telling my opinion didn't matter. And I would always complain to her about it. None of that stuff made her leave that situation. But whenever he talked about bringing a third person into the relationship, that was too much. That was too hard for her to handle. So yeah, you have a guy that's overly physically and verbally abusive, and the thing that makes you leave the situation is that he wants to bring someone else into the relationship, which is enough to make someone leave. But why not before then? Why couldn't she see that the issue before that of me telling her that he was very physically abusive and that he was very verbally abusive, and she saw how verbally abusive he was, and she laughed it off. They would make jokes about it. Anyway, so it was totally sidetracked. That wasn't even what I wanted to even talk about, but it's hard. So what I really wanted to talk about was that she made the decision to leave at that point. She reached out to family and friends, and the only person that she could find that was even remotely willing to help was my great-grandma. I hadn't really had a relationship with my great-grandma before. I knew her. She was very strict, very stern. She was someone who had gone through so much in her life, and She was a no BS type of person. She didn't put up with anything, and she did not like kids. It was very apparent. Anyway, my great grandma reached out to my mom, or my mom reached out to my great grandma. My great grandma told her that we could go and live. We could stay in her shed in Gentry, Arkansas, and we did. We moved and went to Gentry, Arkansas to live in my great grandma's shed. And it sounds so horrible, and it sounds like it's like an extreme thing, and wow, how could you handle living in a shed without air conditioning, no lights, no electricity, no running water. My great grandma had a bathroom, but it was a bathroom where you would use the restroom, but you didn't flush it. You actually left it, and then the only way to flush it was to bring water and refill the commode, refill the toilet, and then flush it, and then add more water to the toilet. It was a very weird situation, but that was the only bathroom in the place. But I remember it. It was kind of bad, I guess, but I remember it was a good situation, because I had never gotten to know my great grandma, and even in that instance, while I was staying there, while me and my mom and my sister were staying there, I still didn't really get to know my grandma. But on her wall, she had all kinds of old pictures, photographs from our family, from the history, basically the history of our family. Old pictures, the tan and black and white ones, and the pictures where the old people don't smile, the elderly people don't smile, they all have stern faces, those pictures. And then she had pictures of her kids and stuff like that. It was interesting because the walls were covered in pictures. And then my great grandpa had passed away before I was born, or at least I never got to know him if he was alive in my earlier part of my life. And in her room, in my great grandma's room, which was also his room, of course, she had all sorts of dolls covering the walls, they were all over the place in the room. And I would ask her, "What about your dolls?" And ask her all kinds of different questions about the dolls and stuff. And she informed me that they were not her dolls, that they were actually my great grandpa's. And I thought, wow, that's kind of weird. Why would a guy collect dolls? And as I've studied more, I've learned that that wasn't so weird back then. That wasn't so weird for that time. And it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be weird at all. Anyway, so it was a very interesting experience. It was on a dirt road. I was living on the farm that my great-grandpa had built, basically in this house. There wasn't a farm anymore, really. It was a piece of land, but it used to be a farm. And in the house that my great-grandpa had helped maintain for so long before he passed away. That was interesting. It was different. But not in a bad way. Anyway, that was just one of the thoughts that came up. Wanted to kind of share, give you a chance to get to know a little bit about my background. I'm sure there's going to be a lot more thoughts, and I'll share more as I go. Anyways, love you guys, and I will talk to you later.